MiHoYo has hit it big recently with their new releases. Viewership for the game is at a number my bank account can only dream of, and they're making enough money to put cash-grabbing gachas to shame. However, is this game merely a craze riding on the coattails of Genshin, or is MiHoYo pumping out perfection faster than the tutorial made me a Kafka sim? Having played the game for a month now, we can take a better look at what the game has to offer, and we can see how it'll hold up into the future. I'm Rin, and today we'll be doing a deep dive into Star Rail. HoYoverse games have more care and detail put into them than anything else in the genre. Great characters, story, and world building are what we've come to expect, and Star Rail is no exception. As far as the story goes, the main character has been my favorite part. Trash diving, terrible responses at the worst times, dumb bravado, and a complete lack of social awareness. You're basically cosplaying me at this point. This is a rather refreshing take on what it means to be a main character, especially in games like this. Often do you find yourself in a game where the MC just feels like some typical perfect at everything person that has maybe one minor flaw, but it's actually a bonus because it doesn't actually harm anyone and it's, kind of quirky. On the negative side, I would have preferred the story to have some sort of consequences for our actions. Often, if we choose the joke dialogue tree, for example, we are simply met with one-liner responses. From there, the story just picks up as if nothing happened, making the whole exchange feel completely meaningless outside of a quick chuckle. Consequences add a little bit of spice that you need to make the experience feel just that more immersive, as if the choices you make matter, as if you matter, and you do matter, at least to me, mostly because you're subscribed to my channel and I need the viewers. Moving on to the main story. It feels good, but not great. I'm up to date with the story, but I don't really feel invested into it going into the future. As I progressed through the story, I was thinking things were kind of interesting, or thinking stuff like, that's kind of cool, I suppose. I didn't really feel much enthusiasm towards it. The game fails to make me feel an emotional connection to many of the story characters, much like I fail to make an emotional connection to anyone meaningful in my own life. To be fair to Star Rail here, I did have a similar feeling when I was playing Genshin. Genshin's storyline was not something I cared much about with the coming updates. I cared much more about pulling for Ganyu, only to find out her main damage source was the most cringe mechanic in the game. The difference being, Star Rail's dialogue and the mini-quests were something I actually wanted to do, whereas in Genshin it felt more like a chore. Speaking of Genshin, the character designs in Star Rail have been interesting and appealing, but so far, I think I enjoyed Genshin Impacts more. Part of me wonders if this is because I haven't played other Honkai games, so I'm less attached to these characters, but in the base game, there's only 3 characters out of the 7 standard banner characters that I actually enjoy, those being Yanqing, Welt, and Himika. When I compare this to Genshin, the only standard banner character that I don't like was the Destroyer 50/50 Dreams, Chi-Chi herself. The limited banners, on the other hand, have had the actual opposite effect on me. Jingyuan and Sela have far more interesting designs than their counterparts in Venti and Klee from Genshin, or 2 of the first characters that were released. I mean, Jingyuan has a literal Giga Chad lightning Jesus that he has at his beck and call, and it just destroys anyone in his path. And Sela, well, that's just edgelord waifu with the giant scythe. I mean, who doesn't love that? I know I sure as hell do. Hopefully this means into the future, the limited banner characters will continue having great design, so we can actually look forward to getting new units and raising them. Character balance also seems to be done pretty well in this game. Sela is definitely the strongest character in the game, and as our first limited banner unit, that can be concerning, but she doesn't feel overwhelmingly so. I don't feel like I have a bricked account just because I don't have a Sela on it. Jingyuan is another limited character that just got released, and while he also feels very strong and has a spot in the meta, is at least contested. Serval, who's a 4-star unit, is the exact same archetype and element as him, but she can actually keep up with Jingyuan's damage if she has her Eidolon. Because Star Rail actually makes it easy for 4-star characters to get their Eidolons when they're rated up on banners, this is actually pretty meaningful. It means that Serval can realistically compete with the limited banner character when she's a 4-star character. I think that is good design and good balance. Any character in the game can be used to clear content. Yes, even her. And I say this from experience. I am forced to use Herta on my 1 element only challenge account because I haven't pulled Gepard yet, meaning my only current units are Yanqing, Ella, Marsh, and Herta that I can use. She's found a good place on the team as a skill point battery, providing necessary skill points for both Yanqing and March as needed, and occasionally Pella if she has to debuff. She has a nice place taking care of the ads for them. Her bonus damage from her traces on her auto attack is a nice added bonus too. I have a video showcasing this that you should totally check out. Link will be down in the comments below. Gameplay is probably the main reason to play Star Rail. The modern turn-based combat, breathtaking visuals, interesting fights, or at least for now, and variety keep me coming back. The combat itself feels like a mix of Final Fantasy and Epic 7, both of which are games where I heavily enjoyed the gameplay. Skill points are a resource that your whole team shares, and it's where a lot of the decision making in fights are placed. Characters can either use their basic attack or their skill, which grants or consumes skill points respectively. When you're out of skill points, you won't be able to use your skills, so you have to plan accordingly in the fight and make sure you have an optimal flow. There are some exceptions to this rule, such as with Arlen, but Arlen sucks, so we're not going to mention him. Please buff him, MiHoYo. 2x speed is offered to make repetitive repetitive daily grinding much less of a chore. And as much as I've heard people complain about autoplay in games, I actually quite enjoy it. If I'm doing content I've already cleared, I love that I can autoplay it and manage it while I watch TV or work on something else. Hell, while I was clearing dailies, I was actually writing the script that you're listening to right now. Autoplay has the added bonus of not wearing us down when the game feels too much like a chore, preserving the actual freshness of gameplay if needed, so we don't hate playing the game when we actually get to play it. Simulated Universe is where one of the main grinds in this game occurs, and I actively look forward to it. Adding a roguelike to this game was an excellent idea. Not only are the fights pretty challenging, there are many different decisions you can make that offer a large variance in gameplay. Do you want to speedrun the entire instance and have insane amounts of damage? Well, try using the hunt. You won't have survivability, but the speed and raw damage output make it so you probably won't need it. Want to make a team with nothing but shielders? Then Preservation's got you covered. Your shielders can now keep up with their DPS in terms of damage, and their survivability is outputted to the maximum. Curios are another feature in Simulated Universe that add just another layer of depth to this. You have the choice of either saving your cosmic fragments while praying you get a robe, which will give you a large damage increase at the cost of not being able to use your cosmic fragments, aka upgrading your blessings. Galactic Big Lotto can come in at the start of your run and either bless or curse you, forcing you to pray that the AI doesn't one-tap your C-Lab when it's at 1 HP because you got unlucky on one of your rolls. I mean, you have to take it every time it shows up, right? Why else are you playing a gacha if you're not going to gamble every single time? Simulated Universe is extremely well designed and has a lot of potential for the future, so whoever made this definitely deserves a raise. Mirror of Chaos, the second piece of endgame content, is very similar to Abyss and Genshin. For those who haven't played Genshin and don't know what that is, essentially we assign two teams of characters to fight two distinct groups of mobs and bosses. We know what the enemies are ahead of time, so we can plan our teams accordingly, but the mobs generally outlevel us, and there's probably a bit of a twist to them. The mirror is fun at the moment because the mobs vastly outlevel us, which makes for a big challenge. Most players actually can't clear the entirety of it, and this includes myself. I've been playing the game since day one as well, so there is a bit of a challenge here. This, however, may not last into the future. Once our Trailblaze levels catch up and we're actually on par with levels with stuff in the mirror, I'd imagine it would be pretty easy, as a lot of the reason we can't clear it at the moment is it is fairly stat checky, given we can't dodge things like we could in Genshin. Given miHoYo's track record with Abyss and Genshin, I remain doubtful that they'll actually manage this thing properly, so this can be a potential downside. Energy is where the bulk of the daily grind occurs. You've seen this energy system in literally every mobile game you've played so far. Want to upgrade your weapon? Well, it's time to use energy. Want to level up your character? Yep, you have to use energy. You want the mini dopamine hit that comes when you get a piece of gear that actually has good stats and good substats, and then you want to pray for good rolls after that? Well, it's time to use your credit card because there's no way in hell you're getting that as a free-to-play. The silver lining here being that unlike in PvP games like Epic 7, you don't need fully optimized gear to actually clear stuff. I mean, I'm clearing contents with whatever the hell my Herta's build is supposed to be, so you can do it with pretty much anything. The team building in the game at the moment is pretty basic. You pick a DPS, maybe a sub-DPS/debuffer, you pick an offensive support, and then you pick a defensive support or a tank. And then boom, you've got what's probably the optimal team to run right now. Freshness of release has left us with very little characters to actually work with. But that said, because there are so little characters at the moment, I'd imagine that in the future, once we have more characters coming from the limited banner, this will actually change. We'll have more characters, which means more synergies from elements, more synergies for archetypes, like maybe we'll have dot support in the future for characters like Sampo, for example, so you can see more play. And then that'll mean we'll have more team comps to explore and play around with. So I remain hopeful for this feature in the future. Gacha is by far one of the biggest letdowns in Star Rail. We've all quit different mobile games after raging when our waifu didn't come home, and you will likely find yourself in the same exact situation with Star Rail. To guarantee that you get a limited character, you need 180 pulls, or 28.8 thousand Stellar Jades. I don't even know if free-to-play plus players can even guarantee a limited character every other banner, let alone every banner, which is absolutely ridiculous to me. I also don't want to hear that the company needs to make money as an excuse for this kind of stuff. Just look at the amount of numbers that they have pulling from the Sela banner. They've made so much money. They're definitely not hurting for any. There's pretty much no excuse for this kind of system, and I think it's just scummy. So, we've gone over most of the systems in the game. What do you think of Honkai Star Rail's future? While not the perfect game, I think Star Rail has the potential as long as you're not a super hardcore player, or looking to pull for every single banner character as a free-to-play player. The game simply isn't made for a large grind, so if you're more of a casual player, you'll probably get more out of the experience. The gameplay feels great, and Simulated Universe is one of the best designed game modes I've played in a long time. Even though there are certainly things that drag the game down, such as the gacha experience, I think the game is designed very well, it's artistically very beautiful, the music is great, and there's a lot to offer within the game itself. I plan on playing Star Rail into the future. Do you? Let me know down in the comments below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, the notification bell. I go live on Twitch daily. You can check that down in the description below. Until next time, take care.